How's it going, everyone? We are back with another update, and I'm sorry it's been so long. This weather in the UK, what's going on, eh? It's been so hot. But this video is going to be something a little bit different. This is a video of Sam, who's working on all my songs. He's been mixing and mastering, but he's also been playing bass for me. And this video is just going to be how he came up with the bass sound for all the songs. So it's a bit of a geeky one for all you bass fans out there. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
Hey, I'm Sam and I'm playing bass on the Bruises and Beers project. If you watched Dan's last video on the story so far, you'll have an idea of how it all started. But I'm just going to show you through my bass sound and how we ended up with the bass sound that's on the final recordings. So first of all, I've recorded with a DI box, just straight bass. I did start off with a P bass, it being a pop punk, sort of dark pop punk sound. I naturally jumped on P bass first. That's the iconic bass for punk and pop punk sounds. In the end, after a bit of experimenting, I ended up settling on my jazz bass instead. It was just a bit more presence and punch. The guitar sound is quite big, and there's lots of guitar layers, especially on choruses and things. We've got up to I think 7 or 8 guitars on some sections. So the P bass is a really solid low end, and it's got quite a nice chunky sort of grind to it, but it was just getting lost in all the guitars. So I swapped out for my jazz bass and I played around with loads of different amp settings and combinations, and I'll show you what I settled on in the end. So here we're going to use the song Separate Ways. You might have seen the teaser video for that already. And this is my bass recording for that song. You can see I've done multiple takes, and there's certain sections where I've just overdubbed little bits just to really get it all as tight and consistent as possible. So that's what all these different little lanes and cuts are. So this is the bass DI track here, and you can see I've got a few different tracks going on here. So this is what I've recorded in just straight DI bass sound. And then these two are the final bass tracks that end up rendering down and going into the mix. And they're a combination of these 3 tracks. So this first one is kind of a bass SansAmp SVT combination, and that's these 2 tracks here. And then this one is a bass distortion track, which is this one here. So we'll have a listen to just the straight bass DI. And that's just my DI straight in. And then first of all, what I've done is I have this VST called Neural Amp Modeler, and you can load in different amplifiers and speaker impulses. So amp simulation basically, rather than miking up a real amp. And this has got a preamp modeler on it. So this is modeling the Chandler Red 47. And this is gain 34 setting. So this is a bit subtle. It just adds a bit of preamp drive emulation. So I'll flick it on and off. As you can hear, that's kind of adding a bit of volume, and it's also adding a bit of extra low end sort of weight to it, and a little bit more of a sort of pick tack sound, because I'm playing bass with a pick for these. So that just straight away is just a little preamp modeler that's just adding a bit of extra oomph to the bass DI sound. And so we'll go to this first track here, which is got these effects. So the first thing I've added, this is a SansAmp pedal, and this is just adding a bit of drive. On this bass part, we're adding quite a bit of low end, rolling the highs off a bit, touch of presence, not loads and loads of drive, but a little bit. So you can hear it's kind of a bit more bouncy. It's got a bit of twang, and it's got a bit of sort of low end weight, sort of a bit of a bouncy sort of bass tone. And then I have that going into an Ampeg SVT4 amplifier with a SM57 impulse response there. This is simulating a mic'd up amp and cab. So that's adding a touch of gain. It's got that sort of twangy pick attack to it a little bit. And we've got a sort of nice round low end on there. And this next one is just a phase rotator because I'm using two different amps to blend into this channel. So I just needed to make sure there wasn't any phasing causing anything to cut out. So we'll do a quick before and after on this track of everything. So a quite clean little bit of grit, just a touch, bit of twanginess, sort of nice round bouncy low end, sort of just a nice sort of clean bass tone. And this next track here is what we're combining that with. And this one is a different amp. This is an amp preset I got. It's a Pultec into a SVT. And that's the bass amp that someone's modeled with their settings. And then I'm not sticking the speaker cab impulse here because I'm actually using a combination of two. So I'm using this just to add different mics on the same speaker cab. So we'll have a quick listen before and after. So you can see this is a bit more of a mid-focused bass sound. And that's kind of, on the other track, we've kind of scooped it quite a bit. So we've got sort of solid low end and a bit of grit and twang on the attack. And this is just giving a bit more drive and grit into the mid-range just to fill out where I've scooped it. Because we don't want to get rid of the mids. We're just kind of like blending different sounds together to sort of make one big nice one together. And so what that ends up is the two of these together. So we've got this one and this one. And so together, I'll add the second track in and out. So quite a nice big bass tone. We've got a bit of grit in there on the mids. We've got a nice sort of bouncy, solid low end, some nice twangy pick attack there. So these two are both going to this track here. So it's like the combination track. This final track is just another amp sim. I think it's the same as the gritty track from before, the more mid-focused one. But we're adding a tube screamer in front of it. And it's something I've done for a long time, is adding a tube screamer on bass on a second channel, because it just gives it a nice drive and sort of grit. And it's something that's going to help with those guitars that I mentioned earlier, with how big some of the guitar sounds are, to make sure that the bass is sort of coming through. So I'll activate all these. I'll switch this pedal on and off. So you can hear the tube screamer is doing a lot of drive into this. Like you can see, we've cranked it quite a bit. So that's quite gross on its own, really. There's not too much low end in there. It's mainly mids and high mids and that distortion and grind. But what we get when we add those together is quite a big noisy bass tone, really. And then what I'll do in the mix is I'll set up my main bass sound. and then I'll blend this distortion track in to suit with the rest of the mix playing, obviously. So I'm not listening to this on its own. On its own, it sounds too much, but with all the guitars, drums, vocals, and everything going on, I'll blend this distorted track in until it just gives the bass a bit more presence and sort of cuts through all the guitars and everything else a little bit. So we can have sort of a little bit added in just for a bit of extra presence. Or we can like really crank it. And so that's the bass sound I ended up with. So I'll do a quick before and after of all of these. And so that's my bass sound for this song. And most of the songs are generally the same. The only difference is the sort of blend between these two channels. And that all is sort of mix dependent. On some of them, there'll only be like a little bit added in. And on others, there'll be quite a bit, depending on the track. Some of them are a bit more sort of hardcore punk style, really noisy and driving, and some of them a bit more bouncy and clean. So that's kind of how I deal with the bass. So hopefully that was interesting and give you a bit of insight into what I'm bringing sound-wise to the songs. And hopefully we'll have some more videos and teasers for you soon.
I try